My name is Logan Smith. I'm 25 years old. I'm a 13-year resident of the Santa Clarita Valley. I went to North Park Elementary School, Valencia High School, College of the Canyons, so I'm pretty close to homegrown. I'm a professional organizer by trade. In 2016, I worked as field director on Christy Smith's 2016 Assembly campaign. After that, I was the statewide field director for the California Clean Money campaign, where we successfully passed AB 249, the California Disclose Act. The Disclose Act was the strongest campaign finance disclosure law, not just in California, but in the country. And that's something I'm really proud of, because the Disclose Act prevents special interest groups and advertisers paying for political ads from hiding behind deceiving names when they advertise to voters, because nobody should be able to lie to voters. We passed that in a sweeping bipartisan victory after 7 years of struggle in the legislature. Most recently, I was an organizer with Next Gen America, where we work to educate and activate young voters around preventing climate disaster and ensuring prosperity for the middle class here in America and here in Santa Clarita. All right. Yeah, I know. My priorities for Santa Clarita are simple. They may seem like common sense, but there's something I think they're often disregarded in City Hall. I'd like to address the opioid crisis as claiming the lives of people I went to school with, claiming the lives of children in our community, claiming the lives of, we saw, what was it, 9 overdoses and 1 fatality last May. When LA County distributed Narcan to deputies, we were the first place in LA County to get Narcan, because that's how bad the opioid crisis is here. I want to deal with the homelessness crisis. I'm running for city council because just a couple months ago, a woman jumped in front of a train in Newhall, and her last Facebook post was, "Bridge to home shelter, all I wanted was water." I'm running for city council because we need to make Santa Clarita a place where small business can not only work, but thrive. We want to make sure everybody that's putting in the hard work and honest day's hard work has a shot at the American dream right here in our community. And that means making sure we have enough affordable housing for students, for working families, and for seniors on fixed incomes. Because I can tell you what, 20,000 market rate homes up in Sand Canyon, 20,000 market rate homes over off the 126 doesn't do a damn thing for seniors on fixed incomes, and it doesn't do a damn thing for the 331 people living on the streets that we know of, and the potentially thousands more that were not caught in the county homeless count. And I'm running for city council because I think for too long, ordinary working people in Santa Clarita, students, seniors, and disabled veterans, and seniors on fixed incomes, and working low-income families haven't had a voice in City Hall. And I think anybody that's been to a council meeting has probably seen that for themselves. With that said, I'm happy to take questions about my various policy positions.
Thank you. Questions? Don't be shy. Come up to the mic. State your name, community, and your question. Hopefully within 1 minute.
Hello, I'm new to this. My name is Jeff Steffen. I've been a resident here. This is my 19th year here in Santa Clarita, teacher. That was very well said. This is really a question for everybody, but I agree with what you said with regards to the certain issues that you're talking about. The amount of housing and the development that's happening here, where there is no consideration for infrastructure beforehand. Water, where is that going to come from? And also the fact that all these houses that are being put out there, they're not affordable for the people that are here. I just wanted to know where you officially stand with all of this. So,
right. So it's an interesting situation we're in. Santa Clarita has a housing shortage. California has a housing shortage. The whole nation has a housing shortage. As Councilman Miranda likes to say, California needs 400,000 homes, and it needs them yesterday. But anybody that's lived in Santa Clarita can see the problems that rampant overdevelopment has caused for our community. Our water infrastructure is not equipped to handle the people who are already here, let alone 40 to 80,000 more people in our valley. Our roads are not equipped to handle the people that are already here, let alone 40 to 80,000 more people in our valley. So I think that we need leadership in City Hall that's not taking large campaign checks from wealthy developers who are cramming these houses down our throats, which is part of the reason I don't accept a single contribution from corporate donors. When we talk about the actual policy, how housing should work in Santa Clarita, I oppose rampant new market rate luxury developments that are going to do nothing but contribute to the problems that we're facing in this community. They're going to contribute to rising home prices for seniors that make the city increasingly unaffordable for people that have lived here for decades. They're going going to contribute to increased traffic and congestion on our streets, and they're going to contribute to tremendous environmental damage to our beautiful, beautiful valley. We're losing open space at a really alarming rate. But we also have to make sure we have an adequate supply of housing for the people who already live and work here. And what that means is we can't stop building completely. I sometimes wish we could, but the state will pursue legal action against cities that aren't building their fair share of housing. But there are ways that we can do that where we're mitigating the impact on the working people of Santa Clarita, on seniors, on students who are just trying to get their first home, after they graduate. I would like to see an increase in height. Oh, it's my time for that question?
Yes.
Okay.
Time's up.
I'll get to more of it.
Cher Gilmore. I'm with Citizens Climate Lobby. I would like to know, assuming that you think climate change is important, which I believe you do, what do you think more the City Council could do than it has already done to do its part to lower its carbon footprint?
Absolutely. So there's a great segue from the last question, actually. One of the first things we need to do is start upzoning areas near public transit. What that means is instead of putting 20,000 luxury homes right here in Sand Canyon, we can build more high-density housing near public transit so that we're not destroying the character of our community, and we're making sure that we have an adequate supply of housing for seniors, students, working families, disabled veterans, developmentally disabled individuals, et cetera, et cetera. When we do that, we mitigate the environmental impact of new housing developments. We incentivize people to use public transit, which mitigates the traffic and environmental impact of all those commuters on the road. On top of that, we need to start looking at increasing purple pipe projects so that we're revitalizing the watershed here in the eastern half of the valley. Water is a huge problem here. I think everybody that lives in California know that, and we can and should be doing more on that front. A day one priority for me is something called community choice energy. Some of you who may have remembered I spoke about this last year in this very room. Community Choice Energy is a program that delivers renewable energy to your home, 30%, 50%, or 100% renewable energy. You get to choose, and if you don't like the program, you don't have to participate. It won't cost you a penny to not participate. But the kicker here is not only can we allow homeowners to choose renewable energy, they get it at a cheaper rate than they're paying SoCal Edison right now. So we can put money back in the pockets of homeowners, business owners, and back into the city, back into the city's bank account with programs like this, while seeing double-digit reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, not just here in Santa Clarita, but countywide.
Thank you. Next question.
You mentioned problems with water. Now, just recently, the city of Santa Clarita has joined in a joint groundwater agency. So, how do you think the city will be able to help with the water problem based upon their membership in that group?
Step one, we're going to have to replace some of the membership in that group. That's not going to happen for a little bit since they've prolonged their terms with the formation of the new board, but it's plainly clear that the maneuver with the water board was an attempt to secure the water source for 20,000 homes off the 126. I have respect for some of the work Senator Wilk has done, but his water bill was a blatant attempt to secure a water source for his developer friends so they could put 20,000 more homes in our valley, and we've already seen water rates go up as a result. I'm not a big fan of that. That doesn't look like good government to me. And I think that while the oversight the city has directly over that board is obviously limited due to the way the jurisdictions work out, when you're on the council, you have a bully pulpit. And I would personally use my position on the council to advocate for significantly more transparency in how that board operates. And to the extent that we can influence and leverage that position against, like I mentioned, purple pipe projects, especially for the eastern half of Santa Clarita, where we desperately need to revitalize groundwater, I would be willing to do so.
You can come back again and again for questions.
Hello, Stephen O'Neill. I would like to ask you about your plan for helping homeless people.
So this is a hot topic for Santa Clarita because affordable housing for a lot of people here is a dirty word. And as we talked about, nobody wants to see a bunch of new development in our community, but we have a housing shortage. The number one cause of homelessness in Santa Clarita has been identified as the cost of housing. I'm not just pulling that out of thin air. The same report that the council members spent $33,000 in taxpayer funds on for a fancy glossy report said the same things we've been saying. It said they've identified housing prices as the #1 cause of homelessness in Santa Clarita Valley. And while drugs and mental illness are a component, we need to really address this problem at the root, because we can give folks at Bridge to Home a hot shower and some new shoes, but at the end of the day, they're still going to go back and sleep under a bridge. On day one, I would call for a vote to repeal the recent Title 14 amendments that have functionally criminalized homelessness. If you were to go outside right now and sit on the sidewalk, as per the city code, right now, you could be ticketed $500 for sitting on the sidewalk. If you were to lay on the ground at a park, you could be ticketed $500. And the intent of this is to criminalize homeless people. The city council said this was to steer people towards the shelter. But speaking with shelter staff, they've said they've actually seen a decrease in shelter attendance as a result of this. So I'd like to see more supportive housing so we can get people off the streets until the shelter project is complete. I'd like to see, like I said, additional high-density affordable housing. If you've driven by the Three Oaks building in Newhall, it's a beautiful building, and if I told you that units started at $2,500 a month, you'd believe me, but the most expensive unit there is, I believe, about $1,600 a month for a 3-bedroom, and they prioritized, again, veterans, developmentally disabled individuals, and working-class families. And we can do that too. I know I'm slightly over time, but I want to address the root of your question. With policies like this, with responsible development like this, we mitigate, like I said, the impact on the nature and character of our community while ensuring we have an adequate supply of affordable housing, especially for seniors, seniors on fixed incomes and students.
Thank you.
Chair Gilmore, the area where the bermite has been cleaned up, supposedly, I'm not sure it could ever be totally cleaned up enough for people to live there. Would you be in favor of, as the city council would like to do, put housing and places, things that people would actually live there? Or would you prefer to see it be a park, and would you work for that?
You know, we're going to see, I think it's something like decades before the groundwater is purified in that area. I'm not comfortable putting housing right there, and we've already talked about, you know, the disastrous impact of cramming housing into every bit of available space in Santa Clarita. I think a better use of that space would be to open it for commercial development. Small business in this community is facing a desperate lack of affordable business spaces, so I'd like to see affordable small business locations, affordable commercial development, and if we're going to make sure that we can directly impact climate change by reducing cars on the road and impact the traffic that Santa Clarita commuters deal with every day, we need to bring more good mortgage-paying jobs right here to our valley. That's prime real estate for good-paying tech jobs of the future that you can't outsource and you can't automate and you can't ship overseas. And if we're not confident that that land is going to be safe enough for somebody to live on, I feel that's a much better use of the property.
My name is Ed Dunn. Would you be interested in getting the city to do what's necessary to take control of our recycled water, which is totally paid for by all of us, paid for? And right now it's in the hands of people that want to charge the price of potable water for it. So I think the city, like the city of Lancaster and other places that have recycled water throughout their city, north and south, east and west, and are distributing that water, because you mentioned Purple Pipes, within our city boundaries, and it's our water being distributed for us, not being distributed or given to someone outside our city, and we can't touch it. Would you be interested in getting a city council to try and do what's necessary, get hold of that, hold on to it, and hold on to our sand district, because that's where the recycled water comes from?
Absolutely. Gray water reclamation is great technology, and it promotes, you know, this is technology that exists to create savings for homeowners, for business owners, for the city. And while, you know, I'm not opposed to a free market, I don't think that it makes sense for us to let a third party come in and capitalize on that gray water reclamation that public funds have gone into building that infrastructure, and then private shareholders are going to see the profit of that. I want those savings to go back directly into the pockets of Santa Clarita residents. To that end, one thing that we can do is encourage whatever new developments do happen to have closed circuit gray water reclamation, so that runoff water from your property, runoff water from your sinks, et cetera, can be treated on site and then goes right back into your sprinkler system. system, for example. So that way you, the homeowner, directly see the benefit of your water reclamation. On a broader scope, yes, I'm fully in support of the things you mentioned.
Don't be shy, folks. I mean, you can ask all the questions that you want. No? You know, one of the things, Logan, that I've always been kind of remiss about is the idea that our council members sit on a lot of these other agencies and then refuse to talk about the other agencies when they're at the council meetings. So could you kind of chime in on what you think is the way it should be done?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're a public servant elected to a public seat to serve the public, that's your job. There's a very insular nature to the way things are done in City Hall. It's very clannish or tribal, and there's not a lot of desire for transparency or inviting community stakeholders to the table on any given issue, let alone the peculiars of an agency or a committee meeting. And I would be in favor of increasing transparency and accountability at every level. A great first step, I think, would be the creation of something Diane actually talks about a lot, and I'm sure she'll talk more about it, but additional community action working groups and ad hoc committees around various issues. So that way we're inviting the public to the table on these different discussions, these different issues that are coming before the council, and we're making sure that any decision made by the council has been vetted by stakeholders from the business community, from law enforcement, from education, from medical professionals, given, you know, depending on what the subject is or the issue at hand. Anything that's putting more eyes on an issue, if we could clone you 10 times and just have you look at an issue, I'm sucking up here, guys. I think that would, you know, greatly benefit the people of Santa Clarita, given the way things are currently done at City Hall. Ooh, one more. Make it a good one.
Okay. Judy Talor, are you in favor eventually of having council districts and an elected mayor?
The short answer is absolutely. The long answer is that Santa Clarita is the only large city in the state of California that has refused to comply with the California Voting Rights Act. There was a piece of legislation in Sacramento that was being worked on by Senator Josh Newman that would have required Santa Clarita to move to a districted system by requiring any city over 200,000 to move to a districted system. Spoilers, we're the only city that hasn't, over 200,000. When the recall effort against Senator Newman began, he dropped all non-essential legislation, and recent conversations I've had with legislators indicate that's not something they're willing to take up again. So the only way this is going to happen is either by electing new council members or by a lawsuit brought against the city. Having spoken with some lawyers about the subject to get their perspective, if this lawsuit is brought against the city, we will lose. We will lose the CVRA lawsuit to the tune of millions of taxpayer dollars wasted because a couple council members aren't interested in running against each other. And I think that's not how democracy is supposed to work. So I fully support districted systems. I'd actually like to see us expand the size of the council as well to a minimum of 7 seats so that we have greater local accountability, so that somebody from Canyon Country knows they have somebody they can go to talk about their issues in Canyon Country, who lives in Canyon Country and knows the experience of a Canyon Country resident, and vice versa for the various other communities in Santa Clarita.
Time's up. Thank you.